says in verse 15, there was trembling in the camp. This is good. You always want the devil nervous because of you. Do you know why he attacks? In the Old Testament, when Israel was coming into the promised land, and the Lord is showing them what city they are to take possession of. Well, as soon as they get close to that city, what would happen? The people in that city would attack. Which tells us what? Anytime the devil shoots at you, it's only because you're close to another victory. You're about to take over more territory. Be encouraged. It's awesome. It says there was trembling in the camp, in the field, among all the people. The garrison, the raiders trembled. The earth quaked. Do you know that the earth wants to mirror your victories? Water longs to be walked on again. Verse 21. How many of you have friends that used to walk with the Lord, but they don't anymore? How many of you have friends that not only don't walk with the Lord anymore, they actually fight against, they actually work to destroy the very thing you believe in? All right. I want to show you the result of courage on people in that position. This is one of the most unusual promises in the Bible. Listen to this. Moreover, the Hebrews, now remember, we're talking Jonathan, Israel against the Philistines. The Hebrews, the Jews who were with the Philistines, in other words, they were in their army fighting against Israel. The Hebrews who were with the Philistines before that time, who went up with them into the camp from the surrounding country, they joined the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. All right, now listen to me carefully. Picture now a Philistine army, a whole line of them. They all have their armor. They all speak the Philistine language. They all worship the Philistine gods. Everybody looks the same. But in that group are people who are Israelites. In our context, there are people who have tasted of the grace of God. And they have now cast that aside. They want nothing to do with it. And they look like everybody else. In fact, they're fighting against the very thing that they used to stand for. And they're standing there, and the story about the victory of Jonathan and an armor bearer starts rippling like wildfire all through the nation of the Philistines and all through the nation of Israel. This story of extraordinary courage suddenly brings something out of the deep in these people that are soldiers against Israel. They are Israelites, but they are fighting against the very thing they were born into. And the story of courage causes something to rise up in them, and they stand there with this question: what on earth was I thinking? Picture this. Honestly, this is what the verse says. Here they are. They're standing in the Philistine army, and they hear the story of courage, and they start stripping off the armor of the Philistines, everything that identified them with the enemy's camp. And they ran, not to a place of hiding, but they ran to the front lines of battle. The very army they left, the Israelites, is the army they returned to. And they didn't come back complacently. They came back on fire because the story of courage brought courage and identity out of them. I believe the most significant way for us to see a restoration of fallen people right now, one of the most significant ways, is for you and me to clothe ourselves with supernatural courage. The stories of your exploits. You don't have to get it all right. It doesn't have to be that everybody you praise for gets healed. It doesn't have to be that every time you prophesy it's right. Learn to receive correction. Learn to be accountable. Stay in a place of honor, of personal integrity. Don't let your personal life contradict what you're trying to demonstrate in public. Take care of that part of your life. But watch what happens as you demonstrate courage. You will draw people that have been in the enemy's camp out of that camp to the front lines of battle. And then how many of you know people that are still in church, but they won't pay a price to really follow hard after the Lord. Just cold in heart, complacent. All of us do. Look at verse 22. It's our last verse. Likewise, all the men of Israel who had hidden in the mountains of Ephraim, that's Israel, when they heard the Philistines fled, they followed hard after them in battle. What is this a picture of? In all of our churches, there are people that fit into that category. They are there week after week, but they will not commit themselves completely to pay the price to see God glorified in the earth, no matter what. What happened in this story? The story of a soldier and an armor bearer got back into the caves where they were hiding, back into the places where they could keep away from the conviction. Never attend the meetings where a strong revivalist preacher preaches. Just stay away from anything that puts a demand. Choose the comfortable route all the time. And yet the story of courage got back into the caves where these people are hiding. And they heard about a young man who carried equipment wiping out an entire regiment of the Philistine army. About Jonathan who stood, and when he just stood in the name of the Lord, the enemy fell before him. They heard the story of a supernatural invasion of God that was brought on because of extraordinary courage. And they sat back there in their caves. And they said, what was I thinking? One of our young ladies worked at a local coffee shop. She worked with a young man who was very, very militant in his display and promotion of homosexuality. And one day when she came to work, she looked at him and said, "You're not a homosexual." Now, that's not always the smartest thing to say. He got very angry. Very, very angry. And day after day, when she would see him, he would say, "Why do you say that?" She said, "I just know in my heart you're not." And that has made it matter. I don't know how long this went on, but after a while, he came to work one day and he said these words, "I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not a homosexual." Stand. During the worship time today, there was a very strong exhortation about courage. It's the kind of courage that the 12-year-old had when he walked up to the ex-biker and just put his hand on his chest and watched the power of God go through his body and destroy cancer. It's the kind of courage that was displayed when our young man got permission to give words of knowledge over the speaker system in a local grocery store and let people know that God had shown up and wanted to heal people. And a mini revival broke out. It's the kind of courage that broke out at the Greyhound bus depot here a while back as somebody just took the risk and prayed for somebody, and it just began to spread like wildfire through the building. It's the same kind of courage that happens day after day after day. Some of you have seen the videos that are on YouTube about the revival in Disneyland. It started actually with a dream. Not a dream in the night, a dream in the day, where somebody was just wondering, what would it look like to have a revival in a theme park? So they went to Disneyland to find out. It all started with people that are standing right where you're standing, thinking the same thoughts you're thinking, and being willing to invite, God, make me courageous. Let me be bold. It doesn't mean the quiet person becomes loud. It just means that they step out of what's comfortable and display what God has for others. Step outside of being preoccupied with how we appear, and let's serve people. I want you to begin to pray for yourself, and just turn to a person on your right or on your left, and I want you to pray, Lord God, release a supernatural gift of courage to this person. And don't forget me. And don't forget me. I want you just to start praying. Just start praying right now. Pray for the supernatural gift of courage. Pray for those on your right, then turn to somebody on your left. Pray in their hearing. I want them to hear your bold prayer for supernatural courage. Supernatural courage. Boldness that attracts heaven. Courage that restores fallen people. Courage that ignites the hearts of complacent people. Pray something scary over that person. Just pray something scary that God would use them in such an extraordinary way.